Welcome, 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 everyone. Welcome to the MarketHER Group ProTalk. Today we have with us Nakita Pope. Welcome to the platform, Nakita. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. Nikita, I have been looking forward to this so much. Nakita, for all of you, let me just tell you, Nakita is the principal brand strategist and chief chick at Branding Chicks. Nakita has a reputation that precedes her as a super creative in the marketing industry. I've been looking forward to having you here to talk to us, to have this conversation with us about being a strategic creative. Nakita is going to talk to us about how to make magic in your career. Some of the key takeaways she'll be sharing with us are how she clearly defines her vision and her goals. How she creates a unique niche that sets her apart from her competitors, how she tells her authentic story, which I love hearing so much, in a way that fosters innovation and innovative community of partnerships and collaborators around her, and also how to continuously adapt to market changes and evolving customer needs. One of the things I think that you do so well, Nakita, is make connections with different people. So not only your clients, but also those potential partnerships. And we had a talk not that long ago about mentorship. You mentor a lot of other people, and your business tends to center around Black women, or women in general. And I think that a lot of your mentorship work is there as well. So you bring so much to the community, to women, to Black women, that, you know, it's such a joy to get to know you and share this space with you. Thanks so much for being here.
I know, this is going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I love that conversation we had about mentorship because it's such a big part of, you know, I feel personally what's made me successful, but also like, I think it's just a really important part of professional development and in terms of like, you know, building community. I think it's undervalued sometimes, but so valuable.
Yeah, you made that point very, very clear in your She Speaks interview, and you know, I'm all on board with it. And I do think that it's underrated. Mentorship is underrated, but it's such a critical part of our personal and professional development.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, the floor is yours, Nakita. We're excited to hear everything you're going to share with us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm excited to be here. I said that already, but you know, one of the things that I'm excited about is being able to talk about how to create magic in your career. And you know, when this came to me because, you know, of course, my specialty is branding, both business branding and personal branding. And I think that when you are trying to build a career for yourself, you're trying to figure out where you fit or creating a lane of your own that you will fit into, like making sure that that space is one that you occupy with joy and magic is so important. I've always felt like it's a blessing to love what it is that you do. And I love what I do. But that doesn't mean that I've done the same thing for the last 25 years. It's given me an opportunity to sort of play in some new places and create new stories for myself, and to continue to evolve and to grow. So to me, that's where the magic is. It's in the growth.
Agreed.
Yeah. For sure. And then, you know, my philosophy about branding is it's both head and heart centered. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, even if you're talking about a business, there's the strategic part of it, but then there's also the heart part of it, the heart and human centered part of it. So when you think about building a brand for yourself or your business, you want to bring some of yourself to that process, and trying to extricate yourself from your brand is sometimes, you know, not only difficult, but it sometimes doesn't feel that authentic. Like, I'm sure we've all been in that space where it's like, I'm trying to build this thing. I don't know how much of myself to put into it or not put into it. You know, when I first started my business, I hemmed and hawed for a long time about what the brand would be. And that's coming from a branding person. But for me, it was trying to figure out this balance. And over the years, I think that's what I've learned is the sweet spot for me. And it is for a lot of other people and a lot of other organizations, is really figuring out like, how do they, you know, they want to make money, they want to be successful, but they also have like some of that human and heart-centered part of it. That is what stands out. Often that's what makes you different than your competitors. And so bringing that marriage of the two together, I think, is a sweet spot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So just to tell you a little bit about myself, this is my brand 1.0. It's Little Nakita.
That is quite a brand, that blue hat.
Right?
Little
Little Nakita had her own style, clearly.
Yeah.
But I just love this picture of myself as a kid, mainly because it shows so much of who I am. Like, I kind of grew up in the house as an only child. So like my vivid imagination was what kept me company. So like this crazy cowboy hat with these pink sunglasses. I got a little water pistol in my pocket. And I don't know if you can see it, but I have a pen around my neck and a pencil pouch because apparently that's all I needed. Like,
right.
It's time to play and make some stuff. That's all I need. My sunglasses, my pen around my neck, and my pencil case. I'm still very much obsessed with pens for anybody who is wondering, but but that's my brand 1.0. And I feel like that little girl and her desire to just make things and to solve puzzles, like puzzles are one of my favorite pastimes. I feel like the marriage of those two things is what led me to where I am now. Mm-hmm. So that brand 2.0 and beyond comes from that. So I feel like in hindsight, I can see how I've always been this person in a lot of different ways. But being able to step into like the brand that has developed over the last 25 years in marketing and advertising, you know, is very much that. Like, it's the people I've met, it's the people that I've taught, it's the people that I've connected to and connected with, and how I've grown and all the things that come along with that. So this is just a smattering of some of the people that I've worked with, some of the organizations that I've worked with. You know, one of the things what's most important about this is, you know, in terms of strategy, you know, one of the things I wanted was to not necessarily have my business be geographically focused. And that took some effort because that was, you know, 10 years ago, before everything was virtual, before there was hybrid companies and like all that stuff. It was really important for me, not to just work with people that are in Atlanta where I am. So, you know, that's one of the things that I feel like, you know, I bring into this is that desire to work with people with different sensibilities all over the place. And then just like the categories of companies and stuff that I've been able to work with and that I desire to work with. I work with a lot of nonprofits. I work with a lot of community-based organizations. Education is important to me, so that comes into play as well. And of course, there's, you know, service-based businesses and consumer goods. And then, you know, the amount of people that I am, you know, blessed enough to work with that maybe have a very diverse company, or they may come from underrepresented audiences, whether that is, you know, gender or whether that is race or ethnicity. My business is based on helping women-owned businesses and femme-focused brands. And, you know, with women being like the biggest, the largest growing demographic of business owners, like there are women all over the place who are doing such amazing things, and being able to tap into that with them has been amazing. And there are women in all of these categories that are kind of running the show. So that makes it so much more fun. You have a question, Natalie?
I do. So I would like to hear you speak a little bit, if this is a good time for it. Since your brand is so unique to you, and it's very much about being playful in a way, right? So, but how do you create a brand that is very much you, but also can appeal to these type of enterprises?
Oh, for sure. Right. So, from a strategic standpoint, and we'll talk about a little bit more of this in depth later, but like when I'm like from a business branding standpoint, like you want to know who your audience is first. Like you want to be really clear about that. So, like I said, Branding Chicks focuses on women-owned businesses and femme-focused brands, but that's not the extent of it. Like, you want to get into the demographics and the psychographics. And the psychographics, I mean, all of us are familiar with demographics. How old are they? Where do they live? How much money do they make? Are they married? Are they single? Do they have children? Like that kind of stuff. Those are those tangible things. I like to also supplement that with the psychographics, which is the thing that makes us who we are. Like if I lined 5 people up in a row that all had the same demographics, that doesn't mean they're going to be the same people, right? Like the things that they are committed to is going to be different. Where they are in the stages of their lives might be different. The things that are like pain points for them that keep them up at night are probably not going to be the same, right? So the psychographics are the things that fill in the blanks there, right? So when you really know who your audience is, with my clients, I like to create an archetype for them, or like an avatar that is like a specific person that they can like point to. Mine is named Roxy. I know Roxy like I know my best friend because she is the avatar that goes along with Branding Chicks. So when I think about creating new programs or new services or even like other businesses to partner with or where I'm going to go speak or any of those things, my biggest question is, would Roxy care about that? Does she need it? Would she pay for it? And is she going to be there?
Right.
And if the answer to most of those questions is yes, then I know that I am creating something or that I'm tapping into the audience that I really want to engage with. So knowing that audience is the biggest step, because a lot of us just kind of fall into the people that come to us and not really like being proactive about, no, this is who I want to work with. And this is what I'm going to do to get to those people.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. I think what we see here are a lot of companies that maybe were established in a sense, but when you are working with a company that doesn't have a well-established brand already, and you really have to start them from ground zero, developing avatars and helping them understand who their target audience really is, right? So how do you do that? What's the process of helping someone understand who they
their
are,
audience really is,
what their brand really is? Yeah.
And it is a process. Like so much of what I do is the strategic part of it. And it starts from, them really getting clear about why they started the business or organization. So often that can point to who they want to be serving, right? Like even if it's even if it's not a service-based business, but it may be like consumer goods or something. One of my clients is called The Bitter Housewife. And they're based in Portland, and it's a line of like bitters. So they do the bitters for like cocktails and things like that, but they also have like non-alcoholic, like pre-canned drinks and things like that. So for them, it was a pain point. Like we really love, craft cocktails. And we just feel like, at the time when they developed the product, there wasn't as many on the market that was small batch, that was made local, that was made with organic ingredients and didn't have any extra stuff in it, And so that was what they wanted as people. So of course they built this business around that. So often, tapping into that. If that's why if it's a pain point for you, then you're probably targeting people who have some similar problem or some similar sensibilities and things like that. I also focus on the actual branding archetype. So the avatar is like, providing one personality for that person, but your archetypes are like, is this, is that audience an everyman? Are they kind of like your average Joe? Or are they, if you're tapping into caregivers, for instance, like if your audience is a caregiver, then that may mean that they lead with their heart and like you want to be able to speak their language. You want to be able to have your audience see themselves in your brand. So you have to get into their heads so that you can actually speak their language, and so that you can position your product or service so that they understand the value of it. It might already be, but you have to also still tell that story, you know? So, you know, when I look at it that way, it's not as much about selling anything. It's just alignment. Like, how do you tell people a story about what you have to offer that is in alignment with what they already want or need, or some pain point that they have, or something that they already really care about, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So like what I can gather and what I really appreciate about what you're saying is that even though you have a unique personality, and you're targeting larger companies and smaller, maybe startups that can vibe with the brand that you have, right?
Yeah.
So you have your target, your avatar, your archetype.
Yeah.
But then you can go into both, you can still go into both of those spaces.
Yeah.
And so I really think that's a hugely important part of anyone who's developing a marketing agency or marketing service, that you can be that diverse, and you know how to target even those clients that will pay you. Let's just say it, like the clients that will pay you the bigger bucks.
Yeah, the premium.
You know, you can go after those too. It's definitely super important, and we see that from your list here that you've done that very successfully.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that I also want to point out is that it's also not just the work that you do with people, but it's how you work with people. And I've heard over and over again, you know, because I try to keep the feedback loop going as much as possible. So when, you know, if someone comes to me, I want to know how they found me. You know, if they are, you know, vetting 3 other agencies and they decide to go with Branding Chicks, I want to know what made us stand out. After they work with me and they want to come back, or they really enjoyed the process, what was it about the process that really, you know, made it enjoyable for you or made you want to work with us again? And often, you know, and I think this is a really important thing to point to, because it's been a journey for me to understand this. The things that people respond to are not the things that I'm like being so strategic about. It's the heart-centered part of it. You know what I mean? It's the things that come out of me naturally. Like I'm naturally a teacher. I want to teach people things. So that's a big part of my practice. Like you know, I want you to know more about branding, and I want you to feel empowered when we are done here. So that like, it's not a thing where you just got something handed to you, you know, like, here's your brand, you know, like I want you to be able to collaborate with me all along the way. Like all those kinds of things that are important to me, like that's the practice is built around that. But often that's what people are responding to, even if they love the work. More often than not, they talk about how I work with them before they talk about the work.
Yeah.
So, you know, don't discount that if you have a specific way or approach or process to work with people, or if you feel like you have to do it some way that someone else is doing, you know, that's not necessarily true. Like, you know, we all have our strong suits. And I think that that is the thing that you want to lean into when you're building a brand for yourself or for a company. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what that has led me to in this second iteration of my brand is that all those experiences that I've collected, and again, the heart-centered part of it too, all the things that I really care about is sort of like what my brand is now made up of. You know, I started in graphic design, so that's still a big part of my practice. But, you know, I was always a strategic designer, and that kind of morphed into branding on a larger scale and the strategy there. I was a professor for 13 years. I still do a lot of like guest lecturing and stuff like that. And, you know, as a Black woman in this space, diversity, equity, and inclusion is also something that's really close to my heart. When I started in this industry, there weren't nearly enough people who look like me doing this work. And so it's been important to me, both in my teaching, both in how how I move through these communities, the creative communities, the marketing and advertising communities, like all of those things. Those are things that I'm personally committed to. So they become part of my career. So the way that looks, we talked about a little bit just now, but the speaking is a big part of it for me. To me, it's just more education. Believe it or not, I used to have terrible stage fright. And over the years, I've just kind of kept like challenging myself to do more and more of it. But teaching was always something that I loved and I fell into. And I was never nervous when I was teaching because I was so much more focused on making sure that people got it and that they understood what was being taught to them and that kind of thing. So what's allowed me to continue speaking is really just looking at it as more of the teaching. Like they're just bigger stages to teach on. And so that allows me to kind of operate in my magic. We talked about the magic. That allows me to operate in the magic and not get caught up on that voice in my head that says, that's scary. Talking in front of 500 people, that's scary. Don't do that. But I'm like, but somebody out there needs to hear this, and I want to teach those people.
I love it. If I could just comment there, I love that so much. Like what came to mind when you're talking about educating your customers about your process and, so that they become more empowered. It kind of reminded me, I had this mechanic. It's like my family mechanic.
Yeah.
And if you take a car to him, he is going to educate you about, he was going to try to educate you on every little thing under your hood.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's not that I ever really cared to know it. Like that's my family mechanic. I trust him. My family trusts him. But it does, even the fact that he's trying to do that builds trust with me. And then I thought too about, the process of putting yourself in all of these different environments where you're speaking. And we oftentimes will say, doing is learning, teaching is learning. So all of those moments or those things that you do to push yourself in that way is helping you to grow as well. Yeah. And not only helping you to grow, as you said, helping you to build confidence.
Absolutely.
When you're ready to stand in front of 500 people and talk about this, then you've built up a level of confidence, and then it's only going to be reassured by that experience.
Absolutely. And, honestly speaking, as women, sometimes that's something that's hard for us. Like, imposter syndrome is real, and it's not that I don't have that anymore. But it is definitely like I have more tools to tell her to be quiet. Right. In my head, she's a woman. And so like I've given her a name that I probably won't say here, but I've given her a name so that I can just shut her up quickly. Imagine. I'm like, be quiet. Okay. We don't want to hear it right now.
Right.
But you know what? Separate it from your own voice. That's the reason why she has a persona for me. I have to separate it from my own voice. That's not me telling me that I can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a very powerful tool. I think I've started to do a little bit of that for myself as well. But I also think, Nakita, and maybe this comes with you from your background or maybe because you're a teacher, but I think that there is a humility in that protects a person from some of the imposter syndrome in the sense that you're that you are a lifelong learner. Your expectation of knowing it all or even presenting yourself like you know it all is not quite there. Right. Like you said, a big part of your process is asking for feedback. Exactly. Yeah. I am a lifelong learner. I always want to be learning and growing for myself. And because that's something I'm committed to, it trickles down into everything else I do. Every time I learn something, that's something else, another feather I can put in my cap that I can teach one of my mentees or that I can teach one of my students or one of my clients. So like that cycle keeps going. As much as I'm learning, then I can transfer that knowledge to somebody else. And that's one of the things that keeps this work fresh for me and keeps it fun for me. I was telling someone the other day that, I talk to people sometimes that
have been in the industry for a long time, and they're just like, man, I don't know if I can do it anymore. Like, I hate this. I'm tired of it, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, if I have a long conversation with them and I can really dig to the bottom of it, they've been doing the same kind of thing inside the industry for way too long, probably, you know? And I'm not saying that you can't find the joy in it, even if you are, but like, let's be honest, like, I'll speak for myself. As a creative, I get bored. I do. Like, I can't do the same thing day in and day out for 5, 10 years and not feel like I need something else.
Yeah, right.
So, so that commitment to growing and learning also leads me in a lot of different places that I never thought that I would be. But if I'm, my philosophy is that if it makes me want to vomit just a little bit, then I should probably do it. Like, if an opportunity is presented to me and I'm like, oh yeah, I got that, then I'm like, I'm probably not going to grow from it. I might be able to do it well, but I'm not going to grow from it. So, but if it makes me want to throw up just a little, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to learn something there.
I hear that. It's a balance. It's a balancing act with that.
Yeah. And if you lean into that, then it's not so scary. Like, when I have that feeling now, I get excited versus being terrified because I've decided what that feeling means. Like, oh man, I'm going to learn something here. That's exciting. Versus like, no, I don't feel good about it. I can't do it.
Yeah, I definitely think leaning into it and being courageous, especially if you have the mental space for that and the emotional space for that. I think for me, it has to be balanced. Like, everything in my life can't be like that. Like, but sometimes it's like, okay, I'm ready to take on that scary thing, or like, it just comes at the right time. And so it could be, a project that, there's some project that I might feel like, you know what, I just can't put that on my plate right now.
Yeah.
And you have to know that, like, that's modesty too.
Absolutely.
That's wisdom and being balanced. But then there's other times where, you want to push yourself so that you can learn and grow. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to be having too much fun, right?
It's self-awareness on 1,000, right? Everybody's different, and every situation for everybody is different. So like, when those opportunities come up, it's an opportunity to really reflect, like, okay, do I really want to do this? Like, outside of all the logistics, right? Because our mind immediately goes to, well, I don't know if I have this for that, or I don't know if I can do that, or I don't know if I have time. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I stop right there. Do I want to do this? Like, outside of everything else, do I want to do it?
I think that's the most important piece.
Absolutely. Because sometimes we talk ourselves into or out of things based on all the extra, right? But we don't answer that question without any qualifiers. But if you answer that question without any qualifiers, then it becomes, okay, if I want to do this, then now I'm looking at all the issues that pop up for me. I'm looking at that in terms of, okay, how can I get around that? Or how can I solve that? Or how can I make time in my schedule for that, right? Versus like, oh, all these reasons why I can't do it, I'm just going to have to give up on it. But if you decide that you want to do it, then it gives you a different perspective of how to proceed. Or if you decide you don't want to do it, then it makes it a lot easier to just be like, no.
Yes, I think that we can have a whole nother conversation another time about how you got yourself to the place where you're willing to push forward through the fear, through the pain, and have that courage. And I think, thank goodness that you have that. And thank goodness that you're a person who wants to share it. That's exactly what you're going into now, and about teaching and mentoring, and how you share that with people. I think it's such a needed thing to share that, to encourage others. I have friends, even, friends of mine, that just hearing, like, sometimes if I get afraid, I get a little fearful, and that person's voice pops up and said, no, you are the person I know who does that the best. It's like, I am that.
No, it's true. It's true. We all need that.
Yes.
We all need that. And I think, just to piggyback on that, like, it's a muscle. Like, it's not a thing where you like, I've decided I'm going to be this way, and then you just are from here till eternity, right? It's every choice, every move, sometimes every day. You have to choose it. And I still get scared, you know what I mean? But in that moment, I have a decision to make. about how I'm going to proceed here. And the more you do it, the easier it gets, but it's not ever easy. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it does get easier the more you do it. And, you know, I will say the benefit for me is that often when I've taken that leap, I can look back in hindsight and be like, that was the right move. Like, even if I didn't know at the moment if that was the right move, like it paid off in some way, even if it didn't pay off the way I thought it would pay off. Sometimes I learned something I never thought I would learn. Sometimes I learned it the hard way, but I don't regret it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think if you can do that, if you can not like beat yourself up about it, even if it doesn't work out the way that you think it should, then that makes it a lot easier to take the next leap that you need to take.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So as you were saying, talking about teaching and mentoring, you know, that's a big part of that too. I taught at the Creative Circus, which was a portfolio school here in Atlanta. Sorry. I'm gonna do that all over again. Here in Atlanta, that was all about the creative side of marketing and advertising. But I've done a lot of mentoring through other programs and a lot of mentoring, just kind of like, you know, bringing people in under my wing, because so many people have helped me along the way and continue to help me. And if someone can learn from some experience that I've had, or that they can feel empowered by, you know, some extra encouragement, then I'm happy to do that. And a lot of that has been, you know, again, because of that's what I've gotten throughout my career as well.
Yeah, it reminds me of a scripture. It says something like, the generous person's cup is always full.
Yeah, I agree with that. I highly agree with that. So when you think about that magic, right? Like so much of that is, you know, thinking about the things that are that you want. Like, what is it that you want, and what provides personal fulfillment for you? Like, I love this quote: if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much, right? So, you know, really think
not
about
much to your benefit.
Right, exactly. It might work to theirs, but it might not work to yours. And there's a certain level of empowerment that comes along with like building something that is you and that's authentic to you. And that's whether you work for someone else or not. Like, I'm not saying that you can only do this if you have a brand of your own, or a company of your own, a company or organization of your own. But we all have a brand. Like, all of us individually have a brand. It really is the touch point of like everything. Every touch point you have with people is part of your brand. So like, for instance, like, even if you don't feel like you have a brand, if I sat down your mom or your best friend or one of your coworkers or somebody you collaborate with right now, and I said, tell me about Natalie, they will have very specific things that come to mind first, right? And that is your brand. So it's not a matter of, you know, not having one, but it is a matter of being able to focus it and harness it for your good, and to be able to have it benefit you when it's time to execute the things that you want to execute and contribute to your success.
Right.
So what's the value of having this brand, right? There's so many things that come out of it. You get respect, your connections. Natalie talked earlier about, you know, I feel very strongly about building community, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But your connections, the opportunities that land in your lap, or that you are eligible for, or that people think of you for, and having a very clear vision about what you want and what space you want to occupy. Like that, those are things that are seem intangible, but they literally can be the guiding light for you in your life and your career.
Agreed. I think too, like when you, and I think you're about to get into it, you're talking about your niche, but having that clear vision allow you to be very authentic. So you're in Atlanta, and I'm in Washington, D.C., and this is a super corporate area, and I'm kind of an artsy person.
Yeah.
So, figuring out how to, have a brand that is authentic for you, but also gels a bit in this space,
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit complicated. So I
get that.
Yeah, but I like that. But getting your vision clear,
Yes,
it definitely helps you to define your niche and be authentic.
exactly. And I think to your point, one of the things that I always encourage people to separate is having a clear vision about who you are and what your brand is, and then being very clear about the environments that you want to be in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you allow the environments you want to be in or the environment you're already in to dictate what your brand is, then it's not going to be as authentic, right? So it's easy to be clear about who you are and then think about how you fit in the places that you are or that you want to be in. But doing the opposite means that you are now tapped into the environment in a way that you feel like you have to like be a chameleon and keep changing to fit in. And that's not what a brand really is. Like there are some foundational things that should be like the things that you hold on to, Because if those environments are in turmoil, then now you're in turmoil too.
This is actually a really hot topic right now, sort of the difference between, fitting in versus belonging.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, in the business part of my life, it's like, I think I was telling someone the other day, I kind of liken it to web design. So there is the back end,
right?
All the magic is actually happening and all the setup and all the functionality is, but then there's the front end. That is outward facing, right? And so for me, that outward facing, it can change. I can fit that outward facing in certain environments for an amount of time. I will become what is needed in that situation to reach my desired result. However, I need a space where, there's a level to which I won't lose my authenticity even in that, or who I am even in that. But then I have my other spaces with my closer friends and family, or maybe, hopefully even like larger circles where I feel like I can completely just be myself. Or more completely be myself, I'd say.
Yeah. And I think, personally, I feel that when you decide that you're going to commit yourself to curating your communities, everything changes. Because for me, like, of course, there are environments that I think would be beneficial to my career, right? Of course. But I've had the opportunity to experience some of those environments that I know are not conducive to me. Like, and not in the sense that like, I don't fit here, so I don't want to be here. It's much more in the sense of like, this is not where I want to spend my time and energy. Like, I don't know what I could get out of this, but like, I don't want to invest this much in this environment. Because A, I know I probably won't get it back. And B, it's either, or it's against something that is out of alignment with me in somehow, whether it's my core values or, the work that I'm doing or whatever the case may be. And so, over the years, I've learned that being able to curate your environments and be able to like have the courage to say no to some environments is really, really important, because, if you don't, then you find yourself always in environments that don't fit you, or where you're undervalued or not appreciated or not seen or heard. Like, I don't want to be in environments that are that.
Agreed.
No matter how beneficial to my career they might be. But the truth is that if I'm not being seen or heard and I'm being undervalued, it's not going to be beneficial to my career anyway.
Yeah.
I
hear you.
And I know that's a hard thing to understand. And I had to grow to that point. But I promise you, once you go that way, you won't go back.
Mhm.
because now I'm very specific about, you know, who I'll work with and the environments that you know, the places that I choose to play, both like in my community involvement, in my professional involvement, and clients that I'll take. Like all of those things, you know, are part of that for me.
I hear
So
you. Yeah.
let's talk about your niche. So part of your niche is, you know, determining what it is that you really are committed to, what do you really want, and how can you best use your talents, right? Because I know that all of you folks out there, you know, have something that you're really good at, or maybe you haven't figured out what that is yet. And that's okay. I think that, you know, sometimes you have to kind of play in a lot of places to figure out what your thing is. And I think that that's what happened with me. Like I started in graphic design. I worked in advertising agencies and marketing agencies and design firms. I worked in-house. Like I did a bunch of those things. And I worked with a lot of different clients and things like that early on in my career. But you know, that experience allowed me to kind of narrow it down. Like it made it so much easier for me to figure out, okay, design is a very broad category, and it's nestled in the creative side of things, but it's also nestled in marketing and advertising. So like where in that space is the magic for me? Like where are the parts of this that I really, really, really enjoy, that I feel like I'm really good at, right? And so this is, you've probably seen a diagram like this before. It's called an ikigai. But I love this version of it because I feel like it really gets to the meat of it. So there's four quadrants here, right? One is what you love, one is what you're good at, one is what the world needs, and then one is what you can be paid for, right? So where these things cross over, they give you something different. So like what you love and what you're good at, that's where your passion is. What you're good at and what you can get paid for, that gives you your profession. What the world needs and what you can get paid for is your vocation. And then what the world needs and what you love gives you your mission, right? And then if right in the middle, your sweet spot, if you can get all those quadrants to align, is where your purpose really is. And I know that, you know, there are people that, you know, you hear people say sometimes that they are like walking in their purpose. And personally, I believe that that's what this means when you're walking in your purpose. If you've ever done something or been involved in something that like got you so excited and so fired up, and like at the end of the day you would do it for free, that's probably you walking in your purpose. You know what I mean? Does it give you energy or does it drain your energy? Right. And so I just love this diagram. And I think that, again, it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. Like a brand is a living, breathing thing, both for a person and for a business. So you need to constantly be asking yourself the hard questions and reevaluating. And so this is something I look at every year. Like at the end of the year, when I'm thinking about what the year was like and kind of taking an assessment for myself, and like going into the next year, doing my like vision board and like setting my goals and all that stuff. This is one of the ways that I look at, I look at it again and be like, okay, are my answers the same as they were last year? Has something changed? Do I feel differently about something? If I do, then what does that look like? Does that change my goals for next year? Does that change the things that I think are priorities? But as you think through your brand and you continue to like reevaluate it and grow through it, I think it's important to kind of check in with yourself. And this is one of the ways that I check in with myself.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah. So we talked about knowing your audience before, right? Well, when you talk about your personal brand and knowing your audience, you want to make sure that, again, you are thinking about who it is that you want to engage with, who it is that you want to attract, who it is that you want to serve. All of that is really important, because once you know who you are, then it's going to be very clear, like, who the people are that you feel that you want to have experienced that brand. So next one is getting in the room. We talk about, building your own room sometimes, and sometimes that's what it looks like. Sometimes you build the room. Other times you're trying to get yourself in the rooms that include your audience, or that are going to be the rooms that allow you to make that next pivotal step in your career or your personal development. And so often, even when we have opportunities to do that, sometimes we don't take them because it's scary, right? Like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to be in the room with those people. And it's like, nah, I want to be in the room where like I'm the person that knows the least. And that's the room I want to be in. Because that means I'm going to learn the most, right?
I love that. Yeah, that's a lot of courage. You're full of courage.
That's why, I might be nervous the whole time and I might not say a word, but I'm there, right? And, and I feel like those opportunities land in our lap at the most like surprising times, but I feel like everything happens for a reason. So you getting an opportunity to be in a room that you never thought you would be in, like, seize that opportunity. Like, sometimes it's courage for me. Other times it's like, I don't know when this is going to happen again.
Right.
And it's happening now for a reason. So I might not know the reason yet. I might not be able to even like understand what the reason is yet. I can't see that on the front end. But if I don't take advantage of this, then I'll never know. Right. And I'd rather be scared than regret it later, but getting in the room
I'm with you.
is really important. Even if you're just a
That's where that little girl with the pistol in her pocket comes back. I'm with you. I was that chick too. So
man, like get in there. Like, even like I said, even if you're a fly on the wall and you're just listening, if it's a room that you're scared or somewhat intimidated to be in, then those people, you can learn something even as a fly on the wall.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. And I love this quote too. We aren't usually disloyal. We're simply picking up on a fundamental feature of the human condition. We truly have talents in many more job areas than we will ever have the opportunity to explore. So like, I love this because it's a good reminder that sometimes we can't see like what's down the road necessarily, and we can't always see where we would fit, you know what I mean? Or like, the benefit of the talents that we already have. Sometimes we can't see that, but sometimes, again, getting in the room and connecting with the right people, like sometimes you need somebody else to see the thing in you that you can't see. And if you're connected with the right people, then they will, like, just like you talked about your friend who's in your head, like you are better than that, about you're better with that than anybody else I know. Meanwhile, we're over here second guessing, and there's somebody out there who's like, man, she's amazing at that thing. So don't discount that. Sometimes we need to listen to other people because they can see what we can't see sometimes.
Right. And that's the thing. You got to put yourself out there first. You got to get in the room first and put yourself out there a little bit before you can get those rewards.
It's true. And, I know that it can be a little nerve wracking. Like one of my mentees, I laugh at her all the time because like she struggled with that. She struggled with putting herself out there and like, connecting with people. Like she really admires, someone who has a big network or community. But she's just like, she knew what she probably should be doing to get there. But like all those steps seems really scary. And I'm like, okay, here's your homework. Okay. If your mission, should you choose to accept it, is that I want you to identify, I think I told her 30 people on LinkedIn that she does not know, and that she had to reach out to every single one of them. Right. And she's like, oh no, I can't do that. No. And I'm like, I'll give you time to do it, but you need to do it, right?
Good for you. Good for her. That's you. I like that.
I'll give you time to do it, but you got like, if this is what you say you're committed to, right? You're committed to having a vast network and community, then how else are you going to make that happen? Like this is only one of the ways that you can do it, but like I'm going to hold you accountable for what you say you want. And that's where we at.
Yeah.
And it was a scary experience for her at first, but she really got so empowered through that process because she realized not only like that it wasn't as scary as it seemed, but also she got some really positive feedback from people. She got a chance to have several conversations with people that she wouldn't have ever gotten a chance to talk to. And I'm like, you know, I think so much of it is that you have to, and somebody gave me the same assignment, you know. So I know exactly how she felt when she got it, because I felt the exact same way. But you never know. Like, I think that there are so many people out there who are willing to just connect with you on a human level and that are also willing to help you. But people can't help you if you don't tell them what you need. If they don't know who you are and you don't tell them what you need, they can't help you.
Right.
But they are in the wings. There are people waiting in the wings who are looking for somebody like you or a cause like yours or something you're committed to that they're committed to too. They want to help.
Yeah.
And if you look at it that way, then it makes it so much easier to find them because you're just giving them an opportunity to do what they already wanted to do, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about community, you know, meeting and keeping your people, I feel like this is a big one. And I add in the keeping your people because it's not just about networking and collecting business cards and like that kind of thing. I look at building community as building relationships. And I try not to even use the term networking for a reason. So this is something that used to be a little intimidating to me as well. Like I do a good job of building relationships with people like naturally, but when it was a matter of being strategic about it, it always felt yucky to me. Like the networking, like, you know, and I used to talk to my students about this and I'm like, okay, what comes to mind first when I say networking? And almost all of the responses were negative. It's like, oh, I feel like I'm trying to sell somebody something, or I'm bothering somebody, or it just feels like people aren't authentic and they're not real and like all that stuff, right? And it took me a while for myself to figure out that I didn't have to do it the way that I had seen some other people do it. Like, you know, you go to a networking event and often it feels like people will talk to you for a few minutes just to see if they feel like you're worth talking to. And if you're not, then they just kind of bounce, right? Or people are shoving their business cards at you. Like, that doesn't feel good to anyone. And so I thought that that's what networking meant. It's really what I thought. But when I realized that I was good at building relationships and I realized that needed to be what I was doing and not what my idea of what networking was. Everything changed for me. Everything. Because then it wasn't, I mean, of course you want to be somewhat strategic about it, but at the end of the day, I care about creating authentic relationships. Like, I don't care. I mean, I do care like what your title is, or, you know, what it says that you do or you are on paper. But at the end of the day, I might, you know, seek you out because of those reasons. But if I don't genuinely like connect with you or have an affinity for you, I'm not going to push that relationship. You know, I'm going to let that one fall by the wayside and be okay with it.
Yeah.
Because I
think
have good relationships.
Yeah, you're definitely very good at it. I think what I do, like in a lot of situations, is I kind of use conversation starters.
Yeah.
So if it's a little bit more relaxed, I might start off with a question like, "What do you like to do for fun?" It's kind of like what comes out of my mouth, right? Because then we'll start figuring out like what we have in common on a more casual level, and then we build from there.
Yeah.
And I don't have to have a super deep connection. Like I will build off of even one thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's circles.
It has to
somewhere. You could be out here in that circle of mine, but you're still in my circle, and one of my circles out there, right?
Exactly. And I think, you know, I think it's just the human, that's the heart and human centered part of it. Like, I just want to connect with other cool humans, like, period. You know what I mean? Like they may be
learn
different.
something from so many different people.
Exactly. They may be really different than I am, but like if they just seem like a genuinely cool person, or they're funny to me, or I just love how smart they are, or like I'm excited about the thing they're passionate about, even if I don't know anything about it. Like I love to see people excited about something, you know, even if I don't know anything about it. Like if, you know, playing golf is your thing and you get really fired up about it, I'm going to listen.
Right.
Because I'm excited that you're excited.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think that, and knowing that you have to build those relationships over time and that it's not you know, immediate thing sometimes, but you build that relationship over time and being committed to it, you know, and that looks a lot of different ways. Like there are people that are in my circles that I don't talk to very often, but I make sure to check in with them every now and then. Or if they cross my mind, you know, I might send a quick text or a quick email. Hey, I was thinking about you. Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. Or, you know, you were working on that project last time. How did that go? Or I saw this article and it made me think of our last conversation. Or it could just be something as simple as that. But it's just like, you know, keeping the connection open, you know, what I mean? Matters a lot. And so, you know, I don't want to live a life where like I cringe when my phone rings or I cringe when I see certain people's names show up in my inbox. Like, I don't want to live a life like that.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, I want to be excited when you call me.
How do you deal with the people that, like, let's say, I mean, we're all different. We know that, right? Like, come from so many different backgrounds, so many different lines of thought.
Of course.
So how do you build connection with someone who maybe has something different about them, or something maybe that you know about that you don't really agree with the way that they say that? Maybe fundamentally you like, I don't really agree with the way you look at that. But you know, but you know that other than that, I mean, maybe even with that, they're a wonderful person in other ways. Like how do you balance that kind of thing? Because not everybody's like us and not everyone agrees. We don't all agree with the same things.
Of course not. Of course not. Well, one of the things that I will say is that, you know, I feel like the people that I consider to be close to me, whether they are personal friends or people that I consider to be family, or like even, you know, professional connections that I feel are really close to me, it's a very diverse group. Like people come from all walks of life. They have different ethnic backgrounds, you know, different genders, different sexual orientation, like all that. But what connects them, what the common thread through them is, like, they're just genuinely good people. You know what I mean? Like they may have different opinions about certain things, but like, I feel like I know their heart. You know what I mean? And I feel like they're committed to some of the same things that I'm committed to. Like if they really care about community, we're going to connect on that front. And somebody who really cares about community is going to operate like they care about community. You know what I mean? So there's going to be a certain level of empathy and compassion there. And like, those are things that I respond to. Or like if they are, you know, again, you might really be into golf. I don't know anything about golf. But if you talk to me about golf in a way that's like very strategic and very knowledge driven, like I know that you are a strategic person, at least about golf, or that you care enough about something to go all the way down the rabbit hole to learn a lot about it. And that's something that I do about different things, but that's something that I do. So like, I just try to hold on to the things that makes us the same and not so much the things that makes us different.
Right.
You know, because those are the things at the end of the day, a lot of times those are the things that matter more to me. Like, you know, and there are certain things, of course, that there might be a difference about somebody where they have a difference of opinion, but that difference of opinion is fundamentally tied into who they are as a person. Then I might not be able to connect with that. You know what I mean? If it's like way on the other side of things that like in terms of how I think about it, like it's not just like I like blue and you like green. If it's like people fundamentally matter or people fundamentally don't matter, then that's something that I can't get down with. You know what I mean? So and I think that's different for everybody. Like what that line looks like is different for everyone. But I know what those things are for me, you know.
I like you had a sister with the afro, like jumping into the brothers. Go ahead.
And it's funny because when I use this graphic, I designed this graphic specifically because I like to say that I collect people. Because I kind of do. Like once I've decided you're mine, then you're kind of mine forever. And I used to not want to say that out loud to people because I'm like, they're gonna think I'm weird. And they might, but more often than not, people are like, oh yeah, I get that.
Connected.
I collect people. So like, you know, if I ever had, you know, warm, fuzzy feelings about you, then I'm probably still gonna have warm, fuzzy feelings about you, regardless of whether I haven't talked to you 20 years or not. You know, if you're in the group of people I consider to be my people, then you're always gonna be my person. And then the last part is, you know, reigniting your curiosity. You know, I said earlier that sometimes, you know, when you do the same thing for too long or play in the same places for too long, it starts to get a little stale or a little boring. You know, really think about what you need personally to kind of keep the whimsy alive, you know, to keep your curiosity going, to make you feel like she feels, right? Like that you're excited and you're happy, you know, and that sometimes we have to be the ones to take control of that. You know, it's not always on other people. So like if you are miserable in an environment, maybe it's time to think about what a new environment might look like. Or if you really, you know, you're just tired of doing the same thing and you want to move on to something else, like what does that look like for you? Do you need training? Do you need to put yourself in different communities to be able to learn that stuff? But like look for ways to keep the fire going, you know, remind yourself of the things that you loved about being in marketing in the first place. Like, why did I get into this? You know, and am I still doing the things that tap into why I did this in the first place? And if the answer is no, then like, okay, then how can I make some adjustments, right? So that reigniting your curiosity and being like committed to that allows you to know like when it's time to shift, and when it's time to make some changes. And we've all been there. You know, nobody's career is a straight line. You know, any of the people that you probably even consider to be like the people that you hold up to look at as very successful or that you really admire, I promise you, if you look at their background, almost no one has a straight line in their career. There's lots of twists and turns and meanders sometimes. Sometimes that you take a fork in the road and then you end up coming back on course. Sometimes that fork in the road is what leads you to the thing that you really love. Like you never know what that's going to look like. But, you know, really thinking about, you know, how to be strategic and like those categories that are part of your brand and like what is most important to you, that is how you know when it's time to either stay where you are or time to light a new fire and make a shift. So as you think about your brand, like consider all of those elements that we talked about, but also think about, you know, what does it look like for you to build the brand that you want to live into? Sometimes you may not have the brand that you want, or you might not be exactly in the place that you want, but what does it look like to have clear vision about where you want to be and where you want to go, so that then you can step into that, you can live into that, you can be strategic about getting there. And I feel like that's where the magic really is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Agreed. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This has been an exciting presentation. I know that there are so many people who in marketing maybe got into some of the more corporate spaces, and it can start to get dry, it can start to get a little humdrum sometimes. They can just use a oomph, you know, a push to get that magic. And I think that this presentation is going to be really encouraging for those people. A lot of what you talked about is mentoring and teaching. And so how, when you do that, you're always learning more, like you're putting yourself out there into different spaces. Absolutely. So those are two different things, or can be two different things. But by doing those things, you're keeping it very interesting. You keep yourself challenged. when you're giving, you're also getting a lot back. And then to top it off, you're talking about meeting new people, which also puts a lot of energy and fire into you, and doing the work to surround yourself with people who can breathe that energy into you. And then also, just like sometimes that spark might come in a side project or side gig if you do have a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So there's so much here that you have given us, and even just the idea of using some of the tools you gave, and even like that end of the year, beginning of the year sort of vision board, as you talked about, or things where you're just like, what do I want this year to look like, and designing it and building it with intention.
Yes, with intention is a big part of it. Yeah.
You gave us a lot. Really appreciate it.
I'm excited to have shared. These are things that, I feel are important to me, but I also have seen them work over and over again. When people are intentional and strategic about their personal brands or their business brands. And I think, as you said before, like, even if you're in corporate, even if you work for someone else, these are things that you can use, anyway, like regardless, because you have a brand no matter what. And, use those to empower yourself and to be strategic about where your career is going to go next, and not feel like you're beholden to whether someone else says that you're ready to move up or ready to, take on something new. Like, what do you want? And really being able to take the reins on that. And I think that's just such an empowering place to be. So I hope everyone gets that.
I'm sure they will. And if you guys want to connect with Nakita, her email address is here, website is here, and all her social links are there. So please reach out, and definitely we hope to see you again, Nakita, at some of our MarketHER mixers, or just come and meet more of the members. And we look forward to speaking with you again.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.